Welcome back to the theater of dreams and the arena of truth. Welcome to Turkish Star Files. In the sweeping symphony of Turkish television, some pairings vanish when the scene fades, and others keep echoing like a beloved refrain that refuses to quiet down. Tonight we turn our spotlight to one of those echoes, the kind that hums beneath the city's noise and flares up with a single phrase, Ozan Akbaba and Sinem Ünsal. Their chapter may be shelved in the archives of primetime memory, but if you listen closely, the ink is still fresh enough to stain. For weeks, the rumor mill has spun like a restless carousel. Talk of a reunion. Murmurs of digital dirt. Thread after thread about an aching heart. Yet yesterday, just outside a producer's office in Idler, the whispers collided with a voice that chose not to hide. Under the bright winter sun and the harsher lights of a dozen phones, Ozan Akbaba stepped forward, and what he delivered was not a press note, it was a crafted soliloquy, part defense, part lesson, part confession to a past he refuses to treat like a mistake. Before we go behind the curtain of his words, make sure you are within our inner circle. Subscribe to Turkish Star Files, tap the like button to keep this show alive, and if you want to help us keep the cameras rolling and the stories uncovering, there's a join button waiting for you. Your support is the pulse of Turkish Star Files. Now, walk with us through the cobbled rhythm of Istanbul, where memories haunt street corners and every cafe table has overheard a love story. To grasp the magnitude of what happened in Idler, you have to respect the history that brought us here. The connection between Ozan Akbaba and Sinem Ünsal didn't simply flicker on a set and burn out in the trailers. It ignited in those fast-paced nights of shooting schedules and award circuit encounters, a fire bright enough to blur the line between staged tenderness and something that looked suspiciously like the real thing. Fans worldwide learned their patterns, rewatched their interviews, clung to the smallest hint that what we saw in public was more than camera magic. Time has done its usual work, careers diverged, cities changed, new roles rewrote their calendars, but one question keeps circling back like a persistent chorus: is it truly over? The tabloids have been merciless lately, piecing together a puzzle from fragments no one can verify. They painted Ozan as a man staring into the rearview mirror, searching for a path back to something he couldn't replace. Then came the darker noise. Alleged leaks, screenshots arrayed like trophies, clipped messages with convenient timestamps, the familiar choreography of an online scandal. Most actors step away when the air turns toxic. Ozan did the opposite. He asked for a moment and took the mic. He didn't blink, witnesses told us. There was no publicist-approved armor, no polished evasion. He acknowledged that recent days had dragged him through a stretch of shadow, a rough passage, a bend in the road where the light thins out. But he refused to stage that darkness as a destination. He called it a crossing, a tunnel with an exit. He used the time, he said. Used it like raw stone under a sculptor's chisel. First, he cleared the rubble. Without granting dignity to the noise, he spoke of the so-called exposures, those low-grade screenshots and suspiciously clean composites. He didn't raise his voice. He lowered the temperature. Ridiculous, he called them, the kind of bargain bin spectacle that fills airtime when there's nothing real to report. Not just fake, lazy. They couldn't even sell the illusion, he said with a tired half-smile, as if the worst sin here wasn't malice, but a lack of craft. He rejected the premise outright: no secret orders about hair, no weird demands, no hidden recordings. Fiction dressed up as intrigue. And if you listened to the undertone, you heard a man estranged not just from the rumor itself, but from a culture that feeds on distortion and calls it breakfast. Then, when asked what he's been doing while the carnival barked over his name, Ozan surprised everyone. He spoke about rebuilding the self in the quiet. He talked about rhythm. About hands on drumskins, lessons that challenge the body into new patterns, and evenings spent in the embrace of a dance that breathes in 8 counts. Tango, he said, with an ease that made the word itself feel like a whispered step. He kept busy, shaped stress into motion, found in percussion the primal permission to let frustration out, and in the tango, a precision where chaos cannot survive. Those who know the language of recovery recognized the code: this is not collapse, this is recalibration. But for the reporters on that sidewalk, there was only one inevitable destination, Sinem Ünsal. The microphones leaned in. The rumor of a reunion had reached a fever pitch, and everyone wanted either the resurrection or the burial. Ozan chose something more nuanced than either. He denied the reconciliation talk with a steady clarity, not with anger but with a firmness that ended speculation where it stood. And then he opened a gentle door. He explained there had been no war to heal from. No screaming finale. No furniture thrown, no name scorched into the air. They walked away without burning the bridge, he said. They simply stopped crossing it. They haven't sat down together in a long time. They haven't kept a constant line buzzing between them. But Sinem, he told the street, has remained precious to him. He didn't try to categorize it for our convenience. He refused to slap a current label over a past that deserves better. He allowed for the idea that love can change its clothes without disappearing. Respect, care, gratitude, these things don't expire because a romance does. And then came the two words that rewrote the day's storyline with a single breath, my treasure. He didn't pitch them like a slogan, he let them fall like a confession. Within minutes, those words zipped through timelines and trend lists. My treasure sat at the top of the conversation as if it had been waiting to be said. And just as quickly, the fandom split into its familiar camps. For one side, his declaration marked a grown man's goodbye, the elegant closure to a long open window. Proof of maturity, of a heart that doesn't smash what it used to hold. They called it a salute, a bow of respect, an adult full stop. For the others, those words were kindling. The admission, that he still loves her in a way that doesn't demand a present tense, sounded like a banked flame, a quiet ember that keeps heat long after the fire goes out. They pulled up old clips, slowed down hand touches on red carpets, isolated eye glances at festivals, recut interviews from years past as if they were fresh scenes in an ongoing series. The sentence, "We never fought," took on a mythic shape. It was passed around as the signature line that erased older rumors of a screaming finish. They turned the breakup from a soap opera twist into something more like a soft, sad bridge in a favorite song. Why does it matter? Because theirs was more than a footnote in a weekly magazine. It was the gossip legend of a particular moment, a time when their individual trajectories crossed in perfect tempo. On set corridors and at after parties, at charity galas and award nights, the camera always seemed to find them at the same time. Every photo became a debate. Every silence became a suspect. With hindsight, maybe that intensity could only belong to a season. Eventually, life did what life always does. It pulled them toward different challenges. Sinem anchored herself in demanding roles and earned the kind of admiration that can only come from work that risks something. Ozan chased scale and grit, took on parts that turned him into a cipher for power and consequence, and flirted with new markets while still honoring the stage that gave him his name. The bond didn't crumble, it simply became a memory kept in a safe place. And what of Sinem's side of this sudden public tenderness? True to form, she said nothing. No fitful denial, no poetic acknowledgement. Silence, the kind that speaks like a raised eyebrow. Those who read the language of celebrity PR called it composure. Why amplify noise you didn't create? Why correct an interpretation when the tribute holds more grace than harm? She allowed his words to stand alone, a gift box placed at the edge of a shared history, tied with a ribbon neither of them felt compelled to untie. The savviest voices in the gossip sphere are already predicting that Idler will be the last chapter for a while. There is no reunion set to explode on your feeds next week, no secret feud slithering under the tablecloth. Just a story that did its work and left both of them with something to protect. A grown-up ending to a feverish beginning. Not a door slamming. A door drifting closed on quiet hinges. Picture him there, just beyond the producer's steps, refusing to be pulled into a carnival of cheap tricks, lifting his chin above the fog. Hear the drums he talks about, the honest thunder that drowns out gossip. See the dance steps he practices when the headlines try to choreograph his life without permission. And in his palm, something fragile but bright, the memory of Sinem, not as a mistake to purge but as a rare gem he doesn't need to own to value. If this breakdown carried you somewhere real, stay with us. Like, subscribe, and share to keep this conversation breathing. And for those who want to ensure we continue telling these stories with the care they deserve, the join button on Turkish Star Files is right there. Become part of our family. Guard your own treasures, dance your tango even when no one is watching, and don't let the bargain show merchants tell you who you are. Until next time, from the heart of the city where starlight and streetlight meet, good night. But since you came for a deep dive, we owe you the careful unpacking of the sentence that shook the morning: no fight, no reconciliation, and yet affection survives. It's unusual to hear a public figure insist on a peaceful ending in an industry that thrives on stormy finales. We're trained to expect fireworks, screenshot wars, the erasure of old photos, the state-sanctioned unfollow. Ozan gave the opposite, a lesson in keeping the chapter intact. He insisted that distance need not be born from destruction. Maybe that's why the phrase "my treasure" detonated the way it did. Because it acknowledged a truth many of us hide from: some connections are complete even after they're finished. They serve their purpose, teach their lessons, and leave their gifts behind. Of course, not everyone is ready to hear that. The optimists among the fandom will recall how often the world has told them there's no smoke without fire. And yet, sometimes there is only perfume, remnants of a presence that left the room but refuses to let the air forget. They point to body language and old footage, the way his voice softened when her name appeared in interviews years ago, the unguarded smiles that flickered between scripted moments. They'll say that embers don't glow without heat, and that heat rarely declines to seek oxygen forever. On the other side, the pragmatists raise a brow at destiny talk. They say grown people deserve the dignity of closure, and that a compliment is not a contract. If you ask me, the truth sits in the complicated middle. Ozan's new rhythms, a drum that talks back, a dance that requires surrender and insistence at the same time, speak to a man applying discipline to an unruly life. It's not an escape. It's a craft. You don't master tango in a mood, you practice it until the mood learns to behave. And that says something about how he wants his name to live in public. Not as a headline puppet, but as an artist who chooses the beat that carries him forward. Meanwhile, Sinem's silence is its own kind of authorship. It hands the narrative back to the work. It says, my choices, my scripts, my next premiere, that's where to look for what's alive. So we close the book for now, not with a bang but with a benediction. A respectful nod across a room neither plans to cross anytime soon. A thank you for a season that changed the weather. And a promise, spoken or not, that the treasure of a good memory can sit shining on the shelf without needing to be turned into plot again. That, more than anything, is the elegance we keep asking for in an industry that rarely remembers how to be elegant. If there's a lesson here, it's this. You can honor what built you without rebuilding it. You can love the echo without chasing the original sound. And you can walk out of a tunnel stronger than the darkness ever wanted you to be. Stay tuned to Turkish Star Files, where the story behind the story is the one we live for. We'll be here when the drums pick up again, when the next premiere lights the city, when the tango turns into a glide. Until then, guard your peace, cherish your treasures, and don't ever sign up for a cheap show.